Hey, so welcome to a special edition of Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sort of my experience with journalism and news. I get a lot of emails, calls. People want to know, why are you writing about this, or why are you not writing about this? So I thought I would just take a second to talk a little bit about the 7 values of news. Okay. So basically, these are the things that journalists consider when deciding whether to write about something. It isn't just a free for all. It isn't just, oh, let's just decide today what's going to be newsworthy and it's going to change tomorrow. It's not like that at all. Journalism is not a science, it's an art. But within that frame, we have some guidelines, and so we have some rules. So I'm going to talk to you today about the 7 values for news. Okay. And so let's talk with the most obvious one. Okay. What makes something newsworthy? Okay. Number one, conflict. Okay. These are the stories that people will most often say, oh, you're just writing about bad news. Okay. You're just writing about the things that are wrong with the world. Okay. The thing is, one of the things that makes something newsworthy is if there's conflict. Okay. We don't write stories that say, oh, the sun came up today, the sun rose today, because that's expected. Like we know that's going to happen. We write about stories that highlight a breakdown in the system. Okay, where is there some conflict? What's happening that really shouldn't be happening? Okay, that's number one. And quite frankly, that's what people care about most, are stories about conflict. Now, to illustrate, this could be the big picture thing. This could be maybe the Israel-Palestine conflict. Okay, it's war, it's fighting, it's things that should not be happening and are happening. Okay, that's conflict. We care about those things. Okay, if something's going on in North Korea, and there's again talk about it, nuclear weapons, and maybe some sort of strike, that's conflict. Okay, we care about those things. So those are the things that we care about most. That's going to make something newsworthy. Okay, locally, conflict is if there's an arrest, if there's a crime that's committed. These are things that make something, these are things that are happening that shouldn't be happening in a community. There's like a rub, there's a clash, there's a conflict. And so those are things that we as a media entity, we have to write about. Okay, so that's number one. Okay, what makes something newsworthy? Conflict. Things happen that should not be happening. A breakdown in the system. Okay, number two. Okay, proximity. Right, we care more about things that are happening locally than we do, whatever's happening in Texas or Oklahoma or Montana. Okay, we might have an interest there, but we want to know what's happening in our community. Okay, so that's why you might get a story about, we're going to have a heat wave this month, or maybe we're going to have Edison's going to shut off the power. Okay, maybe we're going to have rain this week. Okay, maybe they're going to shut down Highway 101. Okay, these are things that we need to know. Okay, because these are local and they affect us and they're in our community. So when we're talking about news values, we're talking about things that affect people in certain ways. Okay, and proximity, we care more about what's happening in our community than we do somewhere else. If you pick up your local paper, okay, the focus, the front of the section, okay, online, at the top of the page, it's local news. Okay, that's why entities exist, to write about their community. Even the New York Times, okay, is writing about what's happening in the US. Okay, and then obviously they have other things, that they have there, but the focus is on what's happening locally. Okay, so that's something to think about. What makes something newsworthy? Conflict. Is it local? We care more about things that are close to us, proximity. Okay, the other thing is prominence. So why do we write about the Royals moving into Montecito? Okay. Why do we write about Oprah giving a talk at UCSB for graduation? Okay. These are individuals who have a higher level of prominence in the community. And that doesn't mean that they're more important or that they're better than anyone else. What it means is people know who they are. People are familiar with who they are. So they have a level of prominence that if you write about them, there's going to be more interest in that. Okay. This is why sites like TMZ exist. Okay. Celebrity entertainment sites, because people know who these people are. Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, they get a divorce. It's newsworthy, okay? Because people know who they are, more so than the person on your street who gets a divorce, because nobody really knows who they are and they're not in the public eye. So if you ask yourself, oh, well, that's not news, okay? That's just because they're celebrities. Well, yes, it is news, because news by definition is things that people want to know about. We want to know about conflict in our community. We want to know about things that are happening, proximity, and we want to know about people of prominence, okay? And it may not be a celebrity, it may not be just a celebrity. It could be somebody with a very prominent title, okay? We write about new public works director, okay? There's a level of prominence with that job. We write about a new city manager, new this or that in government. That is newsworthy because of the prominence of the title. Okay. So again, these are some of the guidelines that journalists use to decide what makes news, what shapes news. So we're talking about conflict, proximity, prominence. Okay. Those are the three things that we're sort of thinking about. The other thing we think about is impact. Okay. What is the impact? Are people going to be impacted? Are they going to feel something? Are they going to actually have to have their lives sort of disrupted because of something that's going on in the community? Okay. This could be like an election, right? If there's going to be a new mayor, okay, there's going to be some kind of impact. We have a new president, there's impact. Okay. These are things where there's a change and it's going to impact the community. It may be the approval sort of a new housing development, okay? There is some impact there, okay? If there's a fire, okay, that has impact because we all can sort of see that, right? If the city's talking about finding a hotel so that people who live in encampments can move into that hotel, it's because we're writing about that because that story has impact, because those encampments are significant and it could lead to a fire. Okay. So it isn't as though we're just writing about negative things or bad stuff. Okay. That's not what journalists set out to do. But journalists don't set out to write about how well things are going today either. There's an expectation that most things should be working correctly. We write about the things that aren't working correctly so that we can shine a light on them and perhaps there could be some change related to that, okay? And we make those decisions based off of these guidelines, okay? We make it based off of conflict, okay? What is the conflict? What is the proximity? Is this local? Are we writing about stuff going on in Tallahassee? Are we writing about stuff that's going on in our community, okay? And prominence. We care more if we know about it, if we know of it, if it's a celebrity or a prominent institution, okay? And then is there impact, right? What is the impact? We don't want to be writing about stuff. If you and, someone in your household get into an argument over breakfast or dinner or something like that, it may be a big deal to you and your household, but it's not a big deal to anyone else outside of that household. There's no impact there, okay? If you get in that same argument on State Street and it's a huge scene and the cops have to get called, well, there's more of an impact because that's a shared space that we have. So that's something that we consider. And this is art, right? Depending on where you're coming from, you might have a slightly tweaked definition of this, but journalists have to have some kind of guidelines, some sort of shared rules, some sort of best practices to sort of decide what is newsworthy, okay? So that's, those are things that we're looking at when deciding that, okay? The other thing is, of course, timeliness or immediacy. Is it happening right now? We care more about what's going on today than we do 6 months ago or a year ago. Okay. We're not writing stories about President Barack Obama or Trump, right? Or Bush, writing stories about Joe Biden. Okay. Because he's the president right now. Okay. What is happening now is more important than what was happening 6 months ago. Now, we do want to know what was happening in the past because it provides some kind of context. Okay. But if there's something going on, if there's a press release, okay, from the city about some new change in policy, maybe, even street sweeping is going to switch days, or, hey, we're going to have the fireworks this year because we couldn't because of the pandemic. Okay. That is something that we care about right now, right? We don't really care that we couldn't have a 4th of July a year ago. We care that it's happening now. Okay. So these are the things that we're talking about. What's newsworthy? Is it happening now? Is it local? Okay. What is the impact on people? Is there anyone involved where there's some level of prominence, or maybe the institution is of prominence? Is there conflict? Is there something going on that shouldn't be? Is there some clash? We need to explain that to our readers. Okay. So those are some of the things, right? Those are 5 of the news values. And those are what journalists use, what editors use in determining what is something that's newsworthy. Another element of that is emotion. So is a story going to make people feel something? Are we going to feel as though, oh, I can't believe this is happening? This is going to tug at the heartstrings. This is something that is making me feel passionate one way or the other. Okay. Those are different kinds of stories. This might be the sea lion that gives birth at the harbor. Okay. You're like, oh, look at the pup. That's so cool. Oh my goodness. They feel like, wow, how sweet. Okay. Maybe it's the bear because of the drought and the lack of water who comes down from the mountains and all of a sudden is in people's backyards or gets somehow into the urban area. We feel for that bear. We have those emotions. There's, the story about the wolf that came all the way from Oregon and got all the way to San Luis Obispo County. Okay. We feel something, right? Those are stories that create an emotion in us. And that's also a feature story. It's a profile on somebody. It's somebody who's doing something really interesting, something really cool, something different, something inspirational. Okay. So if we feel like, people are going to care about that story, people are going to have some kind of reaction to that, it's going to tug at the heartstrings. That's another news value. And that's something to consider writing about. Okay. So now that's a little subjective because people care about different things, but we do have some shared values. Okay. We do care if there's something happening that is going to make us have sort of this visceral reaction one way or the other. Okay. And then the last one is novelty. Okay. These are things that just don't happen all the time. They're unusual. They're strange. You might, on a national level, maybe they've found a new dinosaur bone. They've never found this complete of a skeleton or something. That's novelty. Okay. That's something new. Like, oh, did you know that? Or it's sciencey and it's something new that they've discovered. That is novelty. Newshawk had a story recently about a guy who followed some ducks from Montecito across the road all the way to the bird refuge. And that is novelty because that doesn't happen every day. It's like a talker story. It's something that's, whoa, did you hear about that? It's unique. It's interesting. Okay. It doesn't happen every day. Not every story has those news values. Okay. Not every story does. But the more of those values, the bigger the impact. If a story has all 7 of those news values, people are talking about it. It's a big deal. It's national news. It's local news in a way that everybody knows about it. So to give you an idea, what is one of those stories? Okay. When we had the Loma fire, we see the big fire over there on TV Hill on the west side. That is a story with all 7 of those news values, okay? Conflict. We shouldn't have a big hill on fire, okay? That shouldn't happen, okay? It has proximity, right? It's in our community. So we care more about that kind of a fire than we do about somebody else's fire in a different community. This is something that's going to affect our daily lives. There's prominence, okay? Like we all can relate to a fire, right? Especially if you're living in Santa Barbara, you know, we get them once every couple of years. It's a big deal. And we're talking about it's visible, it's high profile, it's right there, it's a prominent part of our community, okay? So it has all of those factors, okay? There's impact, of course, because we all see it, right? Like there's ash, there's smoke in the air, we feel it. If you drive by, we see it. 101 slows down, roads have to be closed, okay? People have to be evacuated. It's a significant deal. There's massive impact, and people are just kind of scrambling all over town like, oh my goodness, okay? And it, you know, obviously when it's happening, news outlets are writing about it, right? You're looking at Channel 3, you're wanting to watch it on television, you're looking at the local news sites. Those news sites are covering it. Okay? If you don't cover the big fire, right, people want to know what happened. So in this day and age, yeah, they'll go on social media, they'll look at that raw footage people film, but they want news to be able to explain fact from not fact, what really happened, okay? So we care more about this fire because it's happening right now in our community. And obviously there's emotions, because anytime we see fire, just like it's scary, right? It's like, holy cow, what is going on? Is that going to keep burning? Are they going to get it out? How long is it going to be like that? And it is novel, okay? Even though in Santa Barbara and California with climate change, we are seeing more fires. We do know that, but it's not every day, okay? It's you know, we hope we don't have fires every day. And even though we have increased frequency and we have fires and encampments and this sort of thing, right? We're not living in a day and age yet where we wake up and we can expect a massive wildfire every day, okay? It's still a certain amount of novelty that is going on there, okay? So those are the kind of stories. And when you have a story like that, it's a story everybody knows about. Right? There's nobody in town who doesn't know about that fire. And those are the 7 news values. So when you're looking through a newspaper, when you're reading a story online, you know, let's try to shy away from, oh, journalists are biased or journalists just want to write about the negative stuff. Okay. It's not how it is from my experience. Journalists have guidelines. They have things that they consider when deciding what is newsworthy. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. So the next time you're looking at a story, ask yourself like, oh, which of the news values does this story have? Or does it really have all of them? Or maybe it's just one. And by the way, if you're one of those people who doesn't really care about the guy who walks the ducks to the bird refuge, okay, that's because that story's only got a couple of those news values. Okay, if it's only got 1 or 2 or 3, your people are going to care less. It's not going to affect everybody. But those people that they do affect, they're going to feel it deeply. Okay, so that's how it is. And then the ones with the 7 news values are the ones everybody knows about and everybody talks about. Okay, so let's remember them. Okay, we're talking about impact. Okay, we're talking about emotions. We're talking about proximity. We're talking about conflict. We're talking about immediacy. We're talking about emotion. Okay. And we're talking about novelty. Okay. There's no specific order of what they are. It's just what journalists decide. It's just what journalists use to consider what the news is. So hope that's helpful. I'm just trying to enlighten you a little bit on how we go and approach our news. So that's all for now. Thank you.